Anthony Joshua better be very careful on Saturday afternoon with this old man, I'm telling you. Because if he's not, there's a left hook with AJ's name written all over it. And it's going to be a left hook that he doesn't see coming. We'll see Saturday afternoon. So I listed some concerns going into the Anthony Joshua versus Wladimir Klitschko fight this Saturday afternoon. Now, if you want to watch the fight, it comes on Showtime starting at about 4:15 p.m. Eastern. All right, early Saturday fight if you live in the States. And then if you miss it later that evening, switch over to HBO at about I think it's 10:45, and you can watch the replay on HBO. So let's talk about the concerns for each guy. I'm going to start with Dr. K, Wladimir Klitschko. Now, the first thing that comes to mind with Vlad is age. The man is 41 years old, and he's a veteran of 68 fights. That's a lot of mileage and a lot of years to be in the boxing game. 41 years old. That's a concern. Should be. Secondly, another thing is, if this was George Foreman, and I'm not talking about the George Foreman who fought Muhammad Ali. I'm talking about big George Foreman. The guy who, after 40 years old, he fought 5 times in 1987. Big George fought 9 times in 1988. He fought 5 more times in 1989. And then repeated it once again and fought 5 times in 1990 before Mike Tyson decided to duck him. Now I know that's gonna make I know that statement's gonna make some people mad, but they were deep into negotiations for the Big George Foreman versus Iron Mike Tyson fight, and then Mike Tyson kind of made a phone call and let his people know he just didn't want it. It meaning the Foreman fight. But that's not what this is about. The point I'm trying to make, if Vlad was fighting a schedule like that at his advanced age, or a schedule like, let's say, Shannon Briggs, who fought 6 times in 2014, it'll be one thing. But with this version of Wladimir, the inactivity, it's a mystery as to what we'll get on Saturday afternoon. So, once again, the age is a concern, the inactivity is a concern. Another concern with Wladimir is, how's he going to deal with a hometown referee, potentially? And you know how referees are in certain fighters, when they fight at home, the referee's kind of like a hometown referee. So what if this referee doesn't allow Wladimir to do what he's done for, I say, the better half of the 10 years that he was champion, which is kind of clinch on the inside and lean on Anthony Joshua on the inside? What if that referee just keeps giving him stern warnings and tells him he's going to deduct points and he's going to eventually disqualify him if he continues to do it? If that's the case, it could mess part of Klitschko's plan up. So that's another concern. Another thing is mentally. What do we get? Vladimir's last fight was a loss, and not only mental, his mentality related to not only coming off a loss, but coming off of 17 months since that loss. Will he be able to pull the trigger in this one? We just don't know. Will another concern? Will if Wladimir Klitschko isn't able to hold, can he still find a way to smother AJ's punches on the inside? So if you take away that part of his game, does it take away the other part? A couple of more concerns with Vladimir's. Will Vladimir's stamina hold up if the fight is carried at a faster pace than he wants it to be? We just don't know. I see some problems with Klitschko that I just listed, but his problems come down to pretty much, will we see a guy who's washed up on fight day, or is he a guy with something left? That's the bottom line with Klitschko. So there are really not too many. I mean, outside of the questions I'm asking him, his big thing boils down to, is he going to show up and look every bit of a 41-year-old, or does he have some juice left in the tank? That's what it boils down to for Wladimir Klitschko. With AJ, Anthony Joshua, I have many more questions than I do with the old man. So let's talk about the concerns with AJ. First of all, AJ only has 18 fights, and he hasn't seen the 8th round in any of those fights. So it's kind of like the experience factor. Another concern is, even in those fights, nobody on his resume is even close to the status of a Wladimir Klitschko. How does he deal with that? Wladimir Klitschko has more knockouts than the total amount of rounds that AJ has fought. Think about that. I mean, he's got more knockouts. He's got about 50, 53, 54 knockouts, and AJ hasn't even fought 53 or 54 rounds. 53 or 54. Wladimir is 64 and 4, 64 and 3. I think he has 53 knockouts. Another concern with Joshua: lights, camera action. Will the lights be too much? We're talking about more than 90,000 fans attending this fight. Over 90,000 fans. The difference here is he doesn't have enough. He's fought in front of big crowds, not this big. He's fought in front of big crowds before. But the question here is, the opponent on fight night this time isn't a guy who he can just walk down like some of the bums he's fought. He's in with the sensei. He's in with the master. So the question is, will the big crowd and the opponent and the moment be too much for Anthony Joshua? That's a concern. Another concern is it too much too soon for AJ? His resume says maybe. But then again, Klitschko's age and inactivity say maybe not. So that's a question he has to ask. That's a question his team, well, it's too late for them to ask. I mean, the fight is on, barring some type of anyway. Here's one of the keys to the fight. Here's a concern. Can AJ get past Vladimir's jab? It's a concern, and something that his team had better have him prepared for. Now here's a similar issue on the flip side of something that I meant with, I talked about him carrying the fight, and could Klitschko's stamina hold up? Well, Anthony Joshua, he has some stamina issues. He seemed to be tiring in a few fights that went the longer distance, such as the Dillian White fight. Let me talk about stamina for a second. You know, there's a secret that some people don't know. All these muscular dudes who look real good in the mirror when they look at themselves, a majority of them usually have stamina issues. That's in the boxing ring, and from what I hear from the ladies, carries over to the bedroom with many of them too. Hey, that's not coming from me. That's coming from the ladies. Now here's another secret that most people don't know, and I'm not sure if Anthony Joshua's camp or his team worked on this, but early in his career, another muscle guy by the name of Evander Holyfield, was having big time stamina issues. A lot of people don't know this story. I'm talking about the young Evander Holyfield that had like the little box haircut that fought Dwight Braxton, aka Dwight Kawi. Back in the day, he was having some stamina issues. So his trainer, a guy named Georgie Benton, was one of the best trainers ever. He tricked him. He tricked Evander Holyfield in sparring. And what he would do is, instead of having Evander spar for 3-minute rounds to kind of simulate what's going to happen in a real fight, he would actually set the clock to 2.5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. And so Evander started excelling in sparring, and he began to feel that his stamina was improving. And they're like, great job, Evander. They ran a sight game on him. So what wound up happening is Evander would wind up sparring more rounds. So, for example, let's say the goal was to spar 10 rounds. So at the end of the 10 rounds, Evander would say, hey, you know what? I feel good. I can do like 5 more rounds. But in essence, what Evander was doing, he was fighting 10 2.5-minute rounds instead of 10 3-minute rounds. So then when he fought the extra 5 rounds, sometimes maybe they would make them full 3 minutes, and sometimes they would make them 2.5, just to kind of keep it going. And he had no clue. Worked like a charm. So then when he got into the actual fights, he's like, well, this is nothing. This is easy. And they sit back and were like, nah, man, you're actually going harder than you do. They say train like you fight and fight like you train. They're like, well, you're going harder when you're fighting, because eventually they told him, and he couldn't believe it. So maybe AJ's people use something like that for him. Don't know. But moving along. Stamina was the issue there. Another issue is AJ is flat-footed. Sometimes he sits on his back foot and sometimes waits to throw a counter shot. So he doesn't employ much movement, much head movement, much body movement, what have you. Well, I got news for you folks. That's the style which is tailor-made for Wladimir Klitschko. That's the type of fighter, when he defended his title for 10 years, that's the kind of guy who was tailor-made for Wladimir Klitschko. So AJ, there's a concern there. AJ's got to move a little, and he's got to feint. That basic jab and right-hand counter ain't going to work on Klitschko. Trust me. Unless Klitschko is like a dead man and totally past it. If he's past it, then who knows. But that style right there, if Vlad has anything left, it's not going to work. Also, Joshua's jab isn't the Klitschko jab, and his left hook isn't either. Now, AJ does have a nice right hand, and it's one that opponents don't see coming. He just has a way of hiding it. And I understand you use the jab sometimes to hide it, but it's more a quick shot. More than the jab hiding the right hand coming. It's more of just a timing thing with him. But once again, who has AJ fought? Not anybody on the level of Klitschko, so will he find a home as easy for that right hand? We'll see. So those are my concerns for each guy. In the end, I've made no secret about this in previous videos. If this fight would have taken place on the original agreed upon date of December 10th, 2016, I would have bet on Wladimir Klitschko to win this fight. No question. I mean, if the rematch with Tyson Fury took place when it should have, I would have bet good money on Wladimir in that. The motivation, the timing, the focus was great for Wladimir at that time, and Tyson Fury knew it. He knew it. Now, here's the deal on Saturday. If Wladimir is just too old and past it, this fight shouldn't go past 4 rounds, maybe 5 rounds tops. Joshua will put him away. However, if Wladimir has anything left, I'm telling you this, he's going to confuse AJ, he's going to have him questioning himself, and we could be in for a good one. The key to this fight is Vladimir's jab for him. If he gets his range and AJ is unable to make him miss with that stick, we could be in for a treat. As I stated, Anthony Joshua's jab is not Wladimir Klitschko's. I'll say it again. I hope AJ's worked on his feinting and moving as much as possible, even if it's small steps to either side. I know movement is really not his game, but he's going to have to in this fight. Now, if AJ can get into range, he can be hit. The question is, can he get into the proper range in order not to get hit? I'm not so sure he can. I'm very, very tempted to pick the old man in this one. This isn't a prediction video, but for as many questions as we have about Vladimir's age and inactivity, that's pretty much it for him. Outside of if the referee lets him hold and kind of grapple on the inside. But the bigger questions in this fight kind of lie with AJ. We'll get our answers on Saturday afternoon. Remember, it's 4:15 p.m. Eastern start on Showtime. And then HBO shows the replay about 10:45, I believe. One thing I can't wait for is the ring entrances. I mean, they usually do it big over in the UK, and they should be great this time. I mean, electricity. And we're not talking about 45,000 fans. We're doubling that, 90,000 fans. So I expect a show. However the fight turns out, I mean, but pre-fight, the ring entrances should be on fire. I don't know if anybody remembers. I'll leave it below. I don't know if anybody remembers Wladimir Klitschko's ring entrance for his fight against David Haye. The one when George Foreman forgot his lines and went to the door too early, and they told him, "Not yet, George." And then, so I'll leave the video of that below, and I'll leave the time where you can start watching the video and the time you can finish watching it. But even with George's little goof, I mean, it was kind of dope. I mean, the way that they tried that whole grand entrance with the mock boxing gym and the Vitaly and Klitschko and Big George sitting on the bench reading the newspapers, and then they got up and there was a guy with a woman by like the lamppost, I think it was, like a scene from Casablanca or something, where looked like he was about to propose to her or tell her, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn," one of the two. And it was cool. I mean, it was a nice entrance. And the mock gym scene where the people were sparring and kind of, it was a real nice entrance. I can't remember what part Lennox Lewis played, because it was 3 heavyweights. It was Lennox Lewis, George Foreman, and Wlad Klitschko, or Vitaly, depending on what part of the world you're from. And each of them had a role in the entrance, but I remember Lennox having like a top hat on and a... Well, anyway, I'll leave it below. Check it out. And I'll tell you where to start watching, because I know it's the entire video, so I'll give you the timestamps on where to watch the video. But I'm looking for something big. Just the entire thing to be big. They know how to do it right over in the UK, especially with the ring entrances. So I expect something sweet, for real. Even if the fight sucks, I'd watch if the ring entrances are nice, I would watch that part again. I'd probably watch the fight again, even if it was terrible. But just those alone, you gotta love them. So I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to come back on a post-fight video and talk about I was disappointed in the ring entrances. So I hope they got something funky for us, for real. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Fight Journal, and check out our site, thefightjournal.com. Type your email address in, and everything we post on our site or on YouTube will come directly to your email. We'll catch you on the next one.